In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome to the Deal Board, everyone. And today we're doing something new. We're releasing a new series called Everything You Need to Know About Buying a Business. So, Andy, we've been doing these podcasts for almost 2 years, just a little over a year and a half now. We've got a lot of content for buyers, right?
We have a lot of content, and especially these days, we think it's a buyer's market. We've talked about it on previous podcasts. We are coming out of the COVID crisis or in the middle of it, and we think the marketplace is set for people to buy businesses. And for businesses to buy businesses. We've talked about it over and over again, and people have been asking us, we have 80-something episodes out there, and they're like, where do we find the information? Well, we're going to put it all in one place for you. Right, Jess?
Right. So over the course of the next few episodes of this series, there's going to be a part 1, part 2, part 3, probably a part 4 or 5 too. But we're going to combine about 10 to 15 different episodes, take the best of the interviews that we've done and put it in one place for anyone that's interested in buying a business to reference. And we're going to talk about all kinds of different topics.
Yeah, everybody loves a series, right? So we're going to talk about how to grow through acquisition. We're going to talk about the basics of buying a business. We're going to talk about some financing options. I mean, there's a lot to go over, and the result of what's happened post-COVID.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the economic conditions, what opportunities lie now. We're going to talk about demographic conditions when we're talking about baby boomers. And then we're also going to get deep into the weeds with deals. You know, we're going to talk about not just growth through acquisition, but how to flip a business. What do distressed business sales look like? And, you know, even some information about franchises, and then even dive into financing, which is everyone's biggest question.
Yeah, and we have some great direct entrepreneurial interviews that you're going to love. I mean, I would re-listen to these and I was like loving it. I'm like, oh, this is such good information for right now.
Yeah, it's funny. And there is going to be some stuff like if you're listening to this in 2020, it's going to be very appropriate, current events going on. But even if you've bookmarked this and let's fast forward to the future and it's 2021 or 2022, there's some great advice here that's not dependent on a certain market condition.
Yeah, this is timeless.
Yeah, it's totally timeless. And we do reference some trends that are going on right now because as we're sitting here today, we're still amidst the COVID crisis, a lot of uncertainty. But fast forward, there's still going to be some great advice, great resources and tactics. But what I'd say is bookmark, if you haven't subscribed already to our podcast, make sure you subscribe and bookmark this series. If you subscribe, it'll automatically download to your phone. So the next few episodes will all be about buying businesses.
Yeah, and you can go to the dealboardpodcast.com and you could go to Apple and leave us a nice review. There's a lot of places that you can consume this and bookmark it, put it on your headphones and learn. I mean, there's so much to learn and we're going to give you the information direct right now.
All right. Well, we'll jump right into it. But if you have any questions, please visit us at thedealboardpodcast.com. Submit your questions. We can answer them via email or in a future episode.
All right, let's get started.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098. So today we're talking about purchasing a franchise, and that's one of the services that we do provide here at Transworld, but we get a lot of questions about buying a franchise versus buying kind of a solo business or starting your own business. And I still think there's a lot of questions that are asked. So Andy, I know we've got some great guests on today talking about their experience with franchising.
Yeah, we have a couple guests that I interviewed. One of them was the infamous Bill Luce, the president of Transworld, but he has and you know Bill well, right?
Oh yeah, he's great. Has like over 25 years of experience in franchising, from brands like Signarama and now Transworld. But he's just a wealth of knowledge, overseeing these franchise brands and knowing what makes a franchise successful and what to look for in a successful franchise.
Yeah, he's really great. I mean, obviously, he's my partner at Transworld, and he's done a great job of taking Transworld to the next level and guiding our franchisees. And so he's just a great listen. And so if you definitely want to tune in for that and stay tuned for that. And then I interview Damien Bekker, and Damien is a great story as well. Damien came to the United States from South Africa, and he was looking to buy a business, and he wound up choosing to buy a franchise instead. And it's an interesting story about why he chose a franchise instead. And since then, he has grown that franchise to be, one of the top. It's actually a Signarama, one of the top Signaramas in the country, and now, the top Signarama here in Fort Lauderdale. And he's done that by thinking outside the box. So he's great to listen to. You got to love that South African accent. So,
Yeah. Then we also have an interview with my good friend Ryan Tracy, who's an incredibly smart and successful entrepreneur and has really chosen to make his mark through franchising as well, with 2 different brands, and started with a few stores. And now I think he's up to 20 or 25 different units across the 2 brands. And like I said, incredibly successful and, very, very smart and sharp. And he talks to us about why he chose to go the franchising route and what he's done to make build his empire through these 2 brands.
Well, you see that franchising aside, all you have to do is drive down the street and see like how many franchises are opening, and they're less risk. That's why people do better at franchising. The stats are incredible. Entrepreneur had a quote in there that 15% of businesses that are started from scratch have a success rate. Only 15%. That's incredibly low. And that compared to 90% of franchises. So that spread right there is just, telling. And if you're a first-time business owner, there's nothing wrong with, looking at a franchise to kind of get your feet wet and buying a franchise. And then, they kind of guide you. I mean, that's what it's all about, is having systems and, and you have the ability to resell it, later on if you kind of grow out of it. So there's a lot of options in franchising. And, and Bill talks about what to watch for when you're buying a franchise. So there's a lot of, great information in this podcast.
Right. Yeah. And ultimately, when it comes to valuation too, one of the things that we talk to sellers about too is franchises often get a little bit of a higher valuation because there's that national brand name, national recognition. And like you said, those processes and systems that many small businesses just don't have the resources to build themselves. So you do get a boost in your valuation when you go to resell one of these units or territories that you purchase as well.
Yeah, you do get a boost. I mean, people, want to buy a business that has a solid system, that has solid books and records, and franchising inherently has that because, of course, the franchisors want to make sure that everybody's keeping good books and records and has good systems, and that's what it's all about. So we do see franchises. I think Signarama sells for almost, I think it's 20% more than a regular signs shop. So there are reasons to buy a franchise. And, a lot of people have the myth that, if I buy a franchise, I'm kind of boxed in. And I think our guests kind of blow that out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people like there's franchises where, you have to follow a system like to the T, but most of them, you have a lot of flexibility to use your entrepreneurial skills and grow it and build it how you want to. And I mean, that's kind of what, Al and I did. And the reason we chose to go with a franchise when we started our business brokerage firm is, we saw that we could start this business from scratch. It would probably take us 10, 15 years to build what Transworld had already created in terms of systems and processes and databases and recruiting strategies and, all of that stuff. Or we could join a firm where we not only got all of that, but we got resources and people to utilized in our growth across the country, across the world, built-in mentors, all of that stuff. So to us, it was kind of like a no-brainer, and the ROI was very, very easy to calculate.
Yeah, and we love our franchisees, and franchisees are a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of franchisors, of course, get their best ideas from their franchisees. The $5 footlong from Subway, that was born in Miami by a franchisee.
Yeah. And incredibly successful. Yeah. So there's a lot you can do as a franchisee to grow and build your business and expand your business. And you're not just stuck in a box. But I think, that our guests really explain that and explain some of the stuff. Like you said, Bill's going to talk about what to look for when you're shopping for a franchise, because not all franchises are created equal. So you really have to know what you're doing and know what you're looking for and what's important to you.
That's all great information, and let's get to it. Okay, we're back, and we're here with Damien Bekker of Signarama, and very happy to have him. He's a great friend, a great entrepreneur, has a really good story about why buy a franchise, and how he's done a great job of expanding that franchise after that. But first, Damien, tell us why you bought a franchise.
So in establishing a business, the biggest thing for me was obviously to have immediate credibility and reliability, another big part of the business. And buying a franchise, being a new business coming into a market, of course, you join a franchise and immediately the public and your potential clients all see you as reliable and all see you as being able to do the job. And obviously realize that there's a kind of big brother over you, making sure that you're producing good quality, that they can trust you. They've got a shared deposit with you and you do a job of $10,000, and you're just a mom and pop store or a Damien Signs or something like that. I don't know how comfortable they're going to be giving you a $5,000 deposit check. They know that if something happens, they could always get back to a corporate office. And I guess that would be with any franchise, right? So for me, it was about opening a business and investing in a business, but then also finding a way to have immediate sort of credibility and reliability and guidance. I have somebody that coming into a business I don't know anything about, you have somebody that can guide you and give you the best chance of being successful, share past experiences with you.
Yeah, that's great. And I remember talking to you as soon as you bought the first store. We'll talk about the second store in a minute, but I remember when you first bought the first store, you said you're from South Africa, if everybody couldn't hear the accent yet. But I remember you saying, hey, I checked out the sign business and you went back to South Africa and you told your friends, hey, we're not going to start in the sign business. We're going to get with the biggest and best company, Signarama. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about signs, when I moved to the US. And I had a friend of mine back in South Africa who wanted to expand his sign business, but it's not in vinyl signs, a different kind of sign business sort of. But he wanted to come into the US and not having been here and experienced the market at the time of that conversation. It was like, okay, no problem. Let's do it together. I'll be over there. We'll expand it. All these great ideas, going to a new country, developing a business and to get here in a couple of months down the line, after doing the market surveys, realizing there was going to be a tough ask to come up against the likes of Signarama. And at that point, then made the decision to say, well, look, expanding and starting a mom and pop shop or an unknown brand, in this market is going to be a real tough ask. So yeah, I had to go back to him and say, well, there's no way that I'm going to try and compete against Signarama. I'd rather just join them and be their friend. And there was a good opportunity with a franchise, and for the other reasons we spoke about now, that was the decision.
Yeah. So, and you weren't just satisfied buying one store. You've done a great job of expanding and Transworld actually helped you do that. So talk a little bit about the two opportunities that you took to expand your franchise. Because a lot of people think about franchising and say, oh, I'm kind of stuck. And that's really never the case. You always have an opportunity to expand. So talk about the two things that you did in conjunction with Transworld to expand.
So once I decided to invest in a franchise and had chosen Signarama to invest in, being with a franchise and having the guidance of the franchise and the people around obviously helped me and motivated me, having a look at the success of other franchises and all that put into one equation, led me to be somewhat successful in the first one, let's say up to that point. But I got an opportunity to look at purchasing an additional Signarama, which is in my area, not as in next door to me, but in the same city, and it just made strategic sense, from a production perspective and from a marketing perspective. So yeah, I got offered a great opportunity through Transworld, and obviously you were imperative in that, and we managed to put a deal together. It was a really good deal, and for purely strategic reason and long-term stability and sales and numbers and all other good things, I made the purchase of the additional franchise in Fort Lauderdale. So in Fort Lauderdale, unbeknown to your normal customers in the area, because we don't really go out and push it that we have both stores, because both stores still run independently. But obviously for us, from a manufacturing perspective, it changed. But we have both locations, and customers go to the one location like they always did, or to the other like they've always done, and we strategize and develop them in the back end as one business. So part of a successful business, and the most important part, is obviously the marketing side. Yeah, you've got to produce a good quality product, and you've got to produce a product that is what the clients want. But you've also got to make sure that people know you're there, and it's a very competitive business. So another opportunity came up again through Transworld, and again you were imperative in that. But it was an opportunity to purchase an LED truck, and an LED truck is a box truck of sorts with an LED screen on all sides. And I looked at it and realized that was really stepping out for two reasons. The first reason is that LED signs are still up and coming. So what you've got people that want to purchase LED signs. They're still a little out of reach for most people financially, but it's an up and coming product. So by having an LED truck, it could put me in front of customers as a professional, as a perceived professional in LED, because I would own 200 square foot of LEDs myself. So I looked at it from that perspective, and then also from a marketing perspective, to make sure that I can really get the brand out there and get the brand in front of my customers, in front of the market. And I purchased the LED truck, and got me into some really, really good clients, very big clients that weren't otherwise with me at that point. And it's worked. We resell the space and resell the branding opportunity to clients. And it's done really good for us, really good.
Well, two great stories. Obviously, buying the other store to expand your marketplace is always an opportunity with a franchise. They're always going to look to good franchisees to expand in the marketplace, especially if they're doing a good job. And it was a great idea to think outside the box. And, obviously being friends with Transworld, in your marketplace, you could look for opportunities to think outside the box and buy something to even expand the franchise. So great stories. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Great opportunity. Good luck.
Hey, Andy, you know what time I think it is? I think it's time to talk about our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Hey, we're back, and we have the deal of the week, and we're going to go right to the Big Apple, New York City, and we're going to talk to Carey Davis. And Carey's with us, and he's got a very interesting deal, medical practice that he recently sold that he wants to tell you about. Carey.
I do a lot of healthcare listings, and it ranges from dental offices to everything from medical spas, rheumatologists. This was an internal medicine practice. The motivation of the seller, well, the doctor was sick himself, and it was his son who contacted me and said that his dad pretty soon wasn't going to be able to practice much longer. So, and to be clear, in New York and many other states, only a licensed physician can own a doctor's office.
Right.
So we got together, and I asked the doctor if he owned any other practices, and to my surprise, he said yes. He also owned an urgent care center. The family had not decided what to do with that yet, and I said to them it would be good if we could list both of them, because we would bring more buyers to the table. One of the benefits of using a broker is that we can bring the pool of qualified investors to the table. So they agreed to list both the internal medicine practice and the urgent care. So this went on, and unfortunately, the doctor died. So now the son, who's not a physician, had to sell the practice. So there's a medical director who's now officially running the practice, but the practice needs to be sold. At the beginning, they priced the practice at $900,000. This is for a practice that was billing, an internal medicine practice that was billing $600,000, and their earnings was $400,000. So a $600,000 gross with a $900,000 price tag is just not going to work.
Right.
And I took the listing anyway because as we work with people, they begin to understand, and because of the events with the father dying, the family realized it was time to get, frankly, realistic about the price. So that's an important message that I want to get across, and that is if a person is motivated to sell a practice or really any business, and they need to sell it as soon as possible, then they can't at the same time be asking for a premium for that business.
Yeah, and we've seen medical practices really have a tough time in selling. It just doesn't seem to be the model anymore for people that run individual practices. So they were lucky to find a buyer, and that's what we're good at, Transworld.
Yes, yep. And there's this correlation between the price of the business that's for sale and the times that it takes to get the deal done. So we finally made the deal for $225,000. And about 4 months later, which was just a little while ago, I called the new buyer and asked them how things were going. And it turns out that doctor decided that he wanted to sell the practice because he was having problems with his other practice. So now I'm able to sell the same practice again, introducing other people who have been interested before. So it was kind of a complicated deal, but we got it done.
Yeah, and it gave that other doctor an opportunity, and obviously it didn't fit him. And that's the good thing about Transworld. They could always come back and resell it. So it was about $225 with 50% down, you said?
That's correct, 50% down, and it would fall in line with exactly what the bank was looking for to support the deal.
So it was financed by a bank?
No, it wasn't, but it was seller financed. But we, our banker friends are helpful to put it together. But in this case, it turned out to be seller financing. Okay,
well, it's a good deal of the week. Selling a unique business to medical practices, which we do sell a lot of. And I appreciate you calling in today. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Andy. Have a good day.
Hey, we're back, and today we're talking about franchising, and we have a very special guest. We have Bill Luce, who is the president of Transworld Business Advisors worldwide, and he is here to talk about franchise. He's been in franchising for a long, long time. Signarama, other brands. I'm going to let him talk about his background a little bit, and we're going to talk about why would you consider buying a franchise and who's a good franchise buyer? Why should you look at that opportunity? So here's Bill Luce.
Thanks, Andy. Good to be here. As you had mentioned, my background, I have about 25 years experience in franchising. And, franchising dominates every single industry it gets into, whether it's any type of food, business service, automotive, retail, you name it. And the reason for that is because franchise enables people to learn the business much quicker. There's systems in place to help people be successful. I mean, if somebody says, well, couldn't I just do this on my own? I guess the answer would be, yeah, I guess you could. But the problem is that the amount of time it would take you to learn the business, develop marketing materials, develop technology, develop a training program for your employees, it probably wouldn't be a cost-effective way to go. I could make the argument anything's in walking distance if you have the time, but why would you put yourself through that? It's the same thing with a business. What I look at franchising as is it's kind of the roadmap. And if you had to drive from, say, West Palm Beach to Seattle, could you eventually get there if you didn't have a map? The answer is, yeah, I guess you could eventually get there, but you'll have to keep stopping, asking directions, getting frustrated, probably wasting money. Same thing with a business venture. A franchise allows you to get from point A to point B much quicker with less aggravation, and it's usually much more cost effective.
That's a great synopsis. So who's a good franchise buyer? I mean, there are people out there that are like serial entrepreneurs and they're going to do it their own way. But what makes a good franchise buyer?
Well, I would say the first thing is definitely an entrepreneurial spirit, but usually it's somebody who can follow systems, not typically somebody who wants to completely reinvent the wheel. It's somebody who can kind of fit into a program. And I will tell you that traditionally, people from the military, veterans, usually make very, very good franchisees because they're used to following that type of system. But the profile would be somebody that's business oriented and really wants to succeed and is driven to succeed.
That's great. And, the reason why franchising is doing so well is because there's fewer failures in franchising, right?
Yes, across the board. I mean, franchising probably runs about a 95% success rate, which is very, very high. Again, it shortens that learning curve of people that are going into business, especially if someone's going into an industry that they don't have any prior experience in, which that's not uncommon, obviously, with franchising. It allows people to learn the business, get up to speed, have the systems, and also have support when they have questions. Sometimes if you go into an independent business that's not a franchise, you got to kind of work through different problems and different challenges that might arise, where a franchise gives you the opportunity to check with people that are familiar with the business and knows what it takes to be successful.
So there's hundreds, if not thousands, of franchises out there in the world. How does someone even start to consider which franchise is good for them, and how should they check them out?
Well, with Transworld, we have a network of over 400 people that are franchise consultants. We represent over 300 different franchise options in all different industries. United Franchise Group has a wonderful portfolio of franchises, from service-type businesses to food to office-based to retail. So it's a good cross-section. But I would say look at your strengths. Look at what you want to get into. A lot of people go into franchising without knowing exactly what they want to do. Frankly, it's usually more common that people say what they don't want to do and start ruling things out. But I would say for any type of business you're looking for, chances are there's a franchise in that industry available.
And you mentioned UFG, and of course, Transworld is a part of UFG. But, and the reason why we talked about it on our franchise development podcast, why I chose UFG and why other people might choose UFG is that they have a program where they actually fly you out to take a look at them. I mean, that's one of the things, right? You should check them out.
That's right, Andy. I would highly recommend anybody who's looking seriously at a franchise opportunity. You want to go out, you want to visit their corporate office. Usually that's called a discovery day, but it gives you an opportunity to really meet the people that you're going to be working with and see if your values coincide with their values and really get a good handle on the type of business that it is. United Franchise Group, we stress that very, very much in that it's a two-way street. The franchisee is getting to know us, but we're also getting to know them. And if either of us decides that it's not a good match, no hard feelings. It's part of the research process, and that's why it's very important.
So when somebody finally does take the leap and joins a franchise system, what's your advice for them in the beginning?
I would say follow the program, work hard. Nothing comes easy. But with franchising, there's systems in place that'll allow you to start off at a much faster rate. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. The programs they have in place typically are proven. Franchises know what works, and more importantly, they know what doesn't work. So you don't want to spend a lot of time and money on things that don't work. So I would say the most important thing, follow the program.
That was the answer I was hoping for. Bill, great having you on today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Andy. Happy to be here.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our Deal of the Week.
Deal of the Week.
Sold.
Hey, welcome back. And we have a great Deal of the Week we wanted to talk about. And that's why we always love talking about good deals for good people. And this is a great story of business, kind of out of the way here in Florida, up in Tallahassee. But we have longtime broker Anthony Geronimo with us. And Anthony, why don't you quickly introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Andy. This is Anthony Geronimo. I've been in the business for about 15 years. I'm a certified business intermediary through the IBBA, also a certified M&A professional. Really love doing this business. And one of the things that I do find the most rewarding is that when you put the right people together for the right transaction, it really is a win-win and you feel really good about it. So
why don't you give us a little bit of an outline of who the buyer was?
The buyer was, he became really the perfect fit. He had an extensive hospitality background, so he really understood how to manage people, and he was tired of kind of running around the state of Florida and different areas. He really wanted to establish some roots, so when he came across this opportunity, it seemed like a really good fit. And, the reason it was such a good fit is because this dry cleaner in particular did so much volume every year. They had really a small army of staff working in the back there. I mean, really at any given time, there was, 10 to 15 people working in the facility. So he just was a really good fit in that he knew how to manage people and psychology of working with a lot of different folks from a lot of different walks of life.
How did we structure the deal? Or, what was the price, eventual price it sold for, and how did we structure the financing?
The pricing was really strong. The business ended up selling with the property for $1,950,000. $800,000 of it was the property side. But this gentleman really used all of the resources that we, as experienced intermediaries, recommended to him. He ended up doing a 401k business rollover program, and then he ended up using one of our premier lending relationships to do an SBA loan. So that was really strong. He took those 401k funds, used it as the cash down payment for the loan. And we were able to do this, Andy, in literally a very, very short amount of time. From the time we had the offer to the time we closed, it was 31 business days.
So, it just goes to show you the strength of the Transworld network. That this buyer would have never thought of going to Tallahassee. And this Tallahassee, very established dry cleaner, probably wouldn't have found the perfect buyer like this. And using all of our tools in our basket, like Stearns Bank, and I think we use Benetrends as the rollover company, this person was able to leverage into the deal, establish a great place for him and his family to live. And we have two happy sides, right?
Absolutely. The sellers in particular were looking, they really put blood, sweat, and tears into this, worked at 6-7 days a week for many, many years. And they have grandchildren, and they're ready to just retire and slow down and enjoy life a little bit more for themselves. So, here they were, they got to ride off into the sunset, and they really did a phenomenal job of transitioning with the buyer, spending extra time. They said, even if something happens 6 months, year down the road, you need to change a filter, get a machine repaired, you call us, we're down the road, and we'll be here to help you.
Great job, Anthony. Good deals for good people. Thanks, everybody.
The show about people who buy multiple businesses and then sell them, and we affectionately call them flippers. You've certainly seen all kinds of A&E TV shows that talk about flippers, or I don't even know. I don't watch that much TV. Is it A&E? But,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of TV either, but HGTV too. I know there's some fix and flip shows on HGTV for real estate, right?
Right. So actually I was contacted by someone in Hollywood that wanted to make a show about buying and selling businesses, but they wanted us to, be able to buy and sell a business in 5 days.
Oh yeah, that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
It's not going to work. So what's a flipper? What is it?
So a flipper, is almost the exact same thing as what happens in real estate, but obviously, not to the level of number of people doing it, but it's a buyer who buys a business because of specific reasons, knows that they can increase the value over time and then sells it. We'll talk a little bit more about, what does a typical flipper look like? And we've got 3 interviews today with some flippers and a broker that works with flippers very closely. But that's basically what it is. It's a business buyer that's looking for a business that they can fix and flip and profit off of in a number of years.
Yeah. And we've seen, not many of these people. We have obviously great people that come to Transworld. And, Tom Jones is one of my interviews, and Tom's been with Transworld actually longer than I have. He taught me the business. He's an amazing broker, very calm, very, analytical. And knows how to help people in this process. And so he has a few flippers that he works with. And one of them is Jason Scher. And Jason is, again, a great guy to talk to. And you're going to hear from all of them. But, I can't believe there's not more of these people.
I know. I mean, like, this is such a great opportunity. And, we've watched people like Jason, and I interview Chris Forful, who's been a flipper with us for a number of years and actually now a broker on our team. But they do so well in this business. And it's just a great opportunity because there's a lot of undervalued assets and companies out there to buy that you can grow over time. And, Andy, you and I were talking about, if more people don't get into this business, we might be tempted to do so. There's just so many opportunities.
Yeah, there's a ton of opportunities, and there's going to be more opportunities. So, if all the numbers out there by the prognosticators come true, that baby boomers are going to come to market en masse, there's actually some predictions that there won't be enough buyers out there in the world, enough skilled buyers, enough buyers with capital. So what does that do? It might drive down prices, number one. Number two, it'll give opportunities to small businesses to go out there and buy businesses.
Yeah. And you can almost, like, if you're a small business owner, you can almost think of your broker as like your VP of development or your outsourced M&A department that can help you build your company over time through acquisition, which is going to increase the value of it. Because, like we've talked about in valuation, the larger a company gets, or the larger the SDE and EBITDA, that's when those multiples really start to move. So if you grow by acquiring some of these other companies, you're really going to increase the value of your business significantly over time.
Yeah, we talked about quality and quantity of earnings drive multiples. So if you buy a business that makes $100,000, $200,000 and you grow it to something that makes $500,000 to $1 million, guess what? You're going to grow the multiple and you're going to make a lot of money. And we've seen the buyers that we're introducing today on the show do this over time and time again. We've seen people in our BNI and networking groups come to us and help us build their businesses and hopefully come to us when they sell them. And and that's the other thing, right? If you want to do this, if you want to become a flipper, certainly listen to this show today, but you're going to need a good business broker by your side, and you're going to need to be loyal.
Right. Oh, totally. I mean, so a few great things that, Chris and Jason both brought up is they're always looking at deals and they're always working with their broker. Chris jokes about that. He works so closely with us. He ended up joining his team and he still has some flipping on the side. But we talked to Chris pretty much on a monthly basis, and he was always looking at our deals. And he said to me, you guys knew that my business was always for sale. So they talk a little bit about, what does flipping look like and how long do they hold a company? And typical is about 3 to 5 years. But I think it was interesting that Chris brought up, like, his business was always for sale and he was always looking for the next investment as well.
Yeah. And for the most part, I haven't seen these guys have any losers, or very few. And, they kind of move on quickly or resell it and sell it to somebody else. And not that it's a bad business, it just didn't fit them. And so, Jason talks about the most important thing to him. It isn't even price. I know Chris talks about price a little bit, but Jason's like, it's not even price. It's about him bringing his talents to the business.
I know. Chris talked about the same thing. How can they increase the value? And it's almost like, it's funny when you say that, Andy, it's almost a different mindset, right? When they're looking at buying and selling businesses, they're looking at them as financial assets. They're not looking at the business as their baby or something that they're going to spend their entire life doing. They're looking at it as a financial asset. And when it no longer fits them, they're going to sell it off.
Yeah, or they've reached the financial capacity that they have, or the, their knowledge base or their skill base to the level that they've reached the highest level that they want to take it, and they sell it to somebody else. And again, they are opportunistic, and they're always kind of looking out there in the marketplace, and they're looking at businesses, and there's tons of businesses out there that, we always say, and we've said this a lot, do you think there's more bad businesses out there or bad business owners out there?
Very, very true.
Bad business owners.
I'm not going to answer that question.
I'll answer it. There's more bad business owners. So there's or not even bad business owners that have lost their passion, business owners that have lost the financial capability, business owners that, don't have the energy anymore or the youth
And there's plenty of room for improvement in these businesses that aren't keeping up with technology.
Yeah. And then there's the whole, we talk about that a lot of buyers are first time buyers. There's also a lot of business owners that get into business and realize they don't want to be entrepreneurs. So there's a ton of opportunities for acquisition.
Yeah. So if you want to be a flipper, today is your day. Today you're going to listen to this. You're going
Yeah.
to listen to this program and walk away and call up a Transworld Business Advisor, hopefully a Transworld Business Advisor, and you're going to become best friends with them because guess what? They get the first phone calls too, right?
Yeah, they get the first phone calls as soon as we get a new deal in the market that we know is going to fit a flipper. That broker's calling that flipper and they're getting the first shot at it. And that's just kind of how it works in our business.
Yeah, because they know they pay, they know they get a deal done, and they know they're serious. So it's all good. Just listen, it's a great show. So with that, let's get started.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Welcome back, everybody. And we are with Jason Scher, and he is from, he's bought several businesses from Transworld, one of Transworld's most favorite customers, of course. And obviously he keeps buying businesses from us, but he's one of those people that out there is an incredible entrepreneur, able to see value in businesses and able to build them and eventually sell them. So I just wanted to have a conversation with Jason today to talk about his experiences and how he does things and why. And so, Jason, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
So, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about, what you do or what you look for as far as when it comes to making an investment or going out there and looking for something, whatever is going to be your next gig?
Well, try to find things that I'm comfortable with. So I look for businesses that have a recurring revenue model, things that I can understand, and try to find things that I can have the most impact on. So, for instance, recently we purchased a business where Transworld helped us find. It's a service business where we can market the product, or in this case, service, ourselves and not be so dependent on other people to do it for us. So I know there's been a big trend in outsourcing work over the last 5 to 10 years, but when you lose that control, there's a lot of things that go along with it that help devalue your company in the long term.
So that's a great points. Obviously, when you're going out there to look to buy a business, and a lot of people come to us and say, "Hey, I want recurring revenues. I want this. I want that." And you seem to be able to cut through and actually make decisions. I think that's important, and I think that's an important distinction that you have over other people. That you're really decisive, and you're willing to take risk. How important is that to you?
Well, I think it all depends on how you define risk. To me, betting on myself is more conservative than having me rely on someone else making decisions for me. So I think it's really the outlook, more so than just looking at it as, hey, I'm putting a pile of money into this thing. Can it work? You have to have a lot of confidence in yourself. It may not always work out. To date it has, but there are going to be failures. You have to plan on the failures, but the question is, if you do fail, you can't be afraid to fail, and you got to learn from those mistakes and move on and get them the next time.
That's great. And so when you're in a deal and you're working it, do you try to maximize the profits, or are you trying to maximize the growth for the eventual exit, or is it somewhat of a balance?
I don't really look at when I do a deal and buying a business in the back of my mind, I have an exit strategy of how marketable will this business be in the future? But I go into it to buy a business, to grow it. And if I grow it and do the right things, all the other elements will take care of themselves. I'll be able to sell it at obviously a higher valuation because I've grown the bottom line. Hopefully I can get multiple expansion because I've grown the business to a larger point, and you can get a higher multiple for businesses that make more money than less. But going into it, I think it's a mistake to go into buying a business with the idea that you're going to unwind it in 2 years or 5 years or whatever. I think you really have to just focus on the business. Can you grow it Does it have the qualities that you look for? And then if that's the case and you're successful with it, all those other factors upon sale will take care of themselves.
That's great. And you talked about valuation a little bit, and that's absolutely right. I've preached that the quality and quantity of the earnings drive multiples. So as the quality of earnings, i.e. recurring, that's very high quality. And then the quantity, as things get toward $1 million, the multiples go up. And you seem to do a good job with that. So how price sensitive are you going into it, or are other factors more important than price?
Yeah, I'm really not focused on price. I'm really focused on the ability to grow. So I bought businesses. One business that you guys helped me secure back at the end of 2011, we paid what most people would consider a rich valuation or multiple of earnings back then. But after we grew the business, in retrospect, we ended up paying very little for the company. So I would not get so focused on what multiple of earnings you're paying today. Think about what will it look like 3 years out, 5 years out, and the question is if you can grow the business. Because if you can grow the business, whatever you pay today will be very inexpensive relative to where you could sell it at that moment. So price is certainly important from a getting financing standpoint. You can't be wildly overvalued. Otherwise, you won't get any kind of financing if you're looking to go that route. And of course, I'm price sensitive. But the most important thing to me is, can I grow the enterprise? That's the most important thing. And do I have visibility in growing it? If it doesn't have that, then I tend to take a pass.
That's great advice. And so you've been doing this obviously for a little while. And Tom and I, who you work with here at Transworld, talked about that we're surprised that a lot more people aren't doing this. But do you see the opportunity for young people, especially millennials who seem to be not satisfied kind of working in one place? Is this an opportunity for other people to do this?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't, to me, this isn't terribly complicated stuff. I think the most important thing, you have to have a lot of confidence in your abilities, and then you have to execute. A lot of people talk a great game out there, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to execute and grow the company and manage it accordingly and be able to hire people and so forth. So for people that have not been in business for themselves, I know it can be a daunting task. I have a lot of friends who have not been in their own business who've told me they want to get into their own business. But, you have to have that confidence in the self, the self-belief that you can make it happen. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that people fear is they're worried that they're going to fail. If you're going to worry you're going to fail, then you are going to fail. So that would be the one thing that I would encourage any young person to draw on is think about what you can do, not what you're going to do.
That's great advice. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Jason, so much for coming on today. I think it's great advice for people. I think you're a very hard worker on top of all that. So I think that helps as well. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Good chatting with you.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Welcome back, everyone. And for our listing of the week this week, we have Robert Cunio with us. He's a broker and owner out of San Diego Central in California. Robert, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Jess.
So you have an interesting business for sale. Tell us a little bit about this listing.
Right. This is a over 20-year-old sign shop, and it's been a successful business, all the while it's been in existence. So we've had some good inquiries so far on this because I think people see it, as a really good opportunity. It's established. It's really consistent in terms of sales. It has some growth. It has growth opportunity. So it's a very good business opportunity in the service business area, which is basically offering the services of design and manufacturing and installation of some great signs.
Great. It's a great industry too. Hasn't been too much affected by the recent economic conditions. And also, 20 years in business, that business has been able to weather multiple storms.
Exactly. It's gone through the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009, and in fact, the owners that currently have owned it since 2010. So they're the second owners, and they've done fantastically well. Their only interest is retirement at this point because they're a little bit older. So they're looking, to put it into some good hands, for somebody to take it into the future.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about the financials. What's the asking price of the business and what's the SDE?
Okay, so the asking price is $210,000, which is really quite reasonable because the SDE is $118,000. So, from a multiple standpoint, this is quite an attractive offering.
Yeah, very attractive. Less than 2 times, which is the average multiple we talk about across all industries. But for a business that's been in business for 20 years in an industry that's, weathered storms and weathering the current storm we're going through, less than 2 times is extremely reasonable. So, Robert, it sounds like a great business. If someone is looking for a sign shop or looking in the San Diego area and wants to inquire about this business, how would they reach you?
Oh, great. Call our office, which is 888-604-8221, and they'll connect you directly with me, and I'd be happy to give you some good data on this to show you how much of an opportunity it really is.
Well, that's great. And we'll drop that information into the show notes for the listeners as well. Robert, thank you for coming back on the show and sharing this listing with us.
Thank you very much, Jess.
Hey, we're back, and I want to welcome a very special guest, longtime partner, Tom Jones, who's been with the company for 25 years. He's cringing because it's been a long time. I think we stopped counting. But Tom is an expert in the business. He's worked with thousands of buyers and sellers over the years, and he has some people that have bought from him multiple times, and that's today's subject. We're talking about people who buy and flip, or flippers, or people who buy, hold, and then sell businesses. And so we just want to kind of dive into the subject a little bit and talk to like one of the preeminent experts in the country. So, Tom, number one, welcome. And, first off, are flippers different than other buyers, and how?
Well, thanks for having me, Andy. I appreciate the opportunity to share in the show with you and share some of the knowledge and experience I've had over the years. To answer your question, I think flippers are different from other buyers. They have different types of goals and objectives. Typically, what I've found is, flippers tend to be more of a professional and experienced and savvy buyer. They've been through the process before. They know how to identify weaknesses and correct them. They also know how to identify potential in a business, and they know how to exploit that and grow a business. Flippers tend to have a little shorter horizon than a typical buyer. They typically want to be in and out of a deal and make a profit and move on to the next opportunity. Typically, I see them get involved in the deal. They might hold for maybe 2 years, possibly as long as 4 or 5. But they want to build value, and they want to build it immediately, and they want to see a return on their efforts in a pretty short period of time. Flippers tend to be, pretty well capitalized, and they have a very reliable source of funding, so they're able to get deals done and convince sellers to go with them in a very competitive, situation they might find themselves in.
That's great. That's a great introduction to the subject. So, a lot of times we see people that come to approach us as buyers, and they're so focused on buying the right industry or they're focused on earnings. Do you find them to be that focused on one or the other, or, which one are they more focused on, what they're buying or the numbers?
That's a great question, Andy. And, what I've found over the years is that people that are buying and selling businesses with a short time frame in mind typically they're not looking for any particular type or size business. The opportunities exist in virtually any type or size, large or small, doesn't really matter. But what they're looking for is they're looking for earnings, and then more importantly, they're looking for businesses that have the potential to grow earnings and thus grow the value. I also find that flippers tend to be attracted to businesses that have been neglected. Maybe the seller has reached limits of their skill level, or maybe they've been hamstrung by being undercapitalized, and therefore the business hasn't really reached its highest potential, and they see the opportunity to grow it pretty quickly.
You talked a little bit about how long they hold the business for, and you said it's not for a long time, but in years, what's that usually?
Typically, I see this type of buyer. Usually, their intention is to hold a business for maybe two years at the minimum, and possibly up to 5 years. Again, they have to be able to find the right opportunity, execute on a plan to build infrastructure, build revenues, profitability, create value, and be able to then capitalize on that effort.
Great. So when they get to that decision to sell, is it usually quick, or is it, are they, or do they get fearful of the economy, or what usually drives them to sell?
These type of buyers, they don't, like a lot of other business owners, they don't get emotionally attached to their business. They approach from day one, their approach is to look at this, to always consider the end game. When they're actually looking for the right business opportunity, they're also always keeping in mind what the end game may look like. How are they going to be able to grow revenues, grow profitability, grow margins, and create a better business out of it, for the intent, obviously, to then sell it for a profit.
Yeah. And so with that, listen, there's tons of opportunity, tons of businesses for sale. And I think that's only going to increase, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I'm surprised there's not more people out there that are doing this. Are you?
That's a good question. I do. I'm really surprised there aren't more of these type of buyers out there, because there are so many opportunities. You and I run into them all the time. Business owners that they have a nice business concept, but they're either undercapitalized, or they just haven't been able to, address the internal issues in the company. They haven't been able to basically break through, the glass ceiling and get to another level in the business. Sometimes they're undercapitalized. Sometimes they just don't have the ability to do it, but yet they have a good product, they have a good service, and a buyer can bring additional experience, and they can really turn what is really an underperforming business into something that's exceptional.
Yeah. So that does sum that up. I mean, I think there's plenty of opportunity. So let's talk about that. So what do you think the future holds? I mean, the economy is kind of hot right now, and baby boomers are getting old. What do you think the opportunity is? Is there room for more people like this?
Well, I think there's a tremendous opportunity in the next, 2 to 5 years. And with the baby boomers retiring and exiting their businesses, a lot of them have become complacent over the years. They get very comfortable with their, with the income they're earning. They're not looking to grow their business in the last, 5 years or so. And there's a lot of opportunity for younger, more ambitious, motivated, and savvy people to take advantage of these situations, buy these companies, grow them, and sell them.
That's great, Tom. So thanks for coming on today. You handled the subject very well. Hey, how can people get in touch with you if they want to become one of your clients?
Thanks, Andy. I can be reached direct at my office at 754-224-3111. If anybody has any questions or they need any help with anything, be more than happy to help.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear,
or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.